All right, guys. Michigan 34, Washington 13. Save my voice. Break it down.
Real quick, I have a genuine question about this. I'm not gonna tell you guys how I feel. Maybe you can guess, but it was awesome last night.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first title I've ever experienced. Matt, I guess you would have seen the 04 Pistons, so you saw that.
Yeah.
This was my first experience with a title. My whole life, I've been the Joker quote. I'm a dog chasing cars. I don't know what to do if I got one. And I don't know. When we won it, it was like the most surreal thing. Like it almost felt like I wasn't watching Michigan like win a national championship.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I loved every second of it. I didn't sleep more than maybe 2 hours last night, but I don't know. I don't know what I was like expecting. I just thought I thought it would feel like your like first kiss, that like rush you get like for the whole night, like you're on the top of the moon. And I think it was more so like maybe like your 10th kiss, still great. I loved every second of it, man. But I don't know. My expectations were so high of how that actually felt. And it's been, 25 years of my life waiting for it that there's just no way I was ever going to meet my expectations. But with all that being said, it was still awesome. But did you guys have any sense of that feeling?
I think it was different for me with Michigan because there's been so many letdowns, and Harbaugh came in with so much hype, and we thought, especially because he had some success, like right when he came in, we thought it was just going to be like he's going to be rattling off title after title after title, and it's everyone knows the journey, I guess, that's been Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. So to me, it was just like an overwhelming sense of relief of like. It kind of and disbelief, kind of like watching the confetti fall and the celebration. It was almost like is this seriously happening? Because we've seen Michigan somehow blow it. That's why when you texted in our text thread, when it looked like Michigan was about to run away with that thing, literally run away with that thing with Donovan
Not
Edwards
so
and
fast,
Corum.
Jared.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking that. I think everyone probably was, but it was like I said, trouble with the snap and all these other games have just ruined me. It's like, no, I can't believe this is happening until I see Jim Harbaugh hoisting that trophy up. But I remember the 97 championship. I was, like 12, 13 years old. So
can I say something about that?
Yeah.
It was, they split it, correct?
Right.
It was not.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever even have like a wow or a national champions moment from that you even remember?
Yeah.
Like, what was there one like that?
Oh, I definitely, for me, I don't know about you, Ted, because it had been a while for Michigan. So you remember the Bo days. I wasn't really around for the Bo days, but no, there was, because you're a kid, 12, 13.
Oh, yeah.
I loved Michigan even more than I do now. Charles Woodson and all those guys. It was definitely exciting. And even back then, the whole split championship thing, I think people make it a bigger deal than what it really was. They won a national championship. That's just how it was.
Yeah, I think this was a little bit more legit since they didn't have to split it. But I was thinking back to my time, just specifically on Michigan sports. Okay, we had the Fab Five. They fell short. But this reminded me more of the '89 championship with Glenn Rice in basketball.
Yeah.
I remember because that's a late game. They beat Seton Hall. I remember turning it over to WJR to listen to all the post-game stuff. This was, ESPN wasn't doing all the stuff that they do nowadays. That's what I got a flashback to '89 when they won the basketball national championship. So that's where I was at. And I think also, fellas, the way they won last night, they had their ups and downs, but the game was closed out after Sanders still picked off that pass and Corum blasted into the end zone. It was over. It wasn't like the Alabama game, overtime.
Right.
I don't know about you guys, we were laughing about our text thread where I basically was like, they're about to TCU this team, referencing last year's national title. I was never nervous during that game last night. I really wasn't. During the Bama game, I never thought we were going to win until the final buzzer sounded. This one, I was confident the whole way. It was one of those where it's like you see it and you're like, man, why did I not bet my whole life savings on Michigan?
Right.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. My dad was like having a panic attack. Like I was like almost rooting for it to be like a good game. Like Washington put some points on the board. Like let's make this a legendary game. I was never worried. Maybe I'm the psychopath. I don't know.
No, I remember thinking that going into the second half when it was basically a 1-score game. Michigan's offense had kind of sputtered in the second half there, and it was definitely seeing how the first quarter went, or they sputtered in the second quarter. I mean, seeing how the first quarter went and then that second quarter, it was a little frustrating. And like man, are they going to figure something out? But I kind of had the same feeling in the second half. Like basically all I thought was don't let one of those big, huge 80-yard bombs happen with those receivers and Penix. And they were going to be fine. And really, it's almost like Michigan knew, Michigan knew going in that the stats were out there. All the analysts, everyone said it. You pressure Penix, you hit him, you get him off schedule, and he's not the same quarterback. He's still, he actually didn't have I was going to say he still had a pretty good game. He actually didn't have a very good game last night. I mean, the numbers right here, I was going to share. Michigan pressured Penix on 17 of his dropbacks. He was 3 of 15 for 14 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks on those. So basically, Michigan obviously knew. Last week with Alabama and Jalen Milroe, it was the same thing. Don't let him get outside the pocket. Don't let him hit those deep balls. And it was the same thing with Penix. Pressure him, hit him.
Yeah.
Don't let him just chill in the pocket, because you saw when he did have time, bink, bink. He's as accurate a passer as we've seen in college football. You hit him, he can't really scramble anymore with some of the injuries he's had.
Yeah, he was beat up.
And our DBs, man, Will Johnson had just a hell of a game, and they all
did.
I was gonna start listing off names. You mentioned Sanders still just, I mean, he's just a Michigan legend. He has to be. The whole story, coming in as a receiver, switching over to DB, honestly, played himself into an NFL cornerback. He's gonna get drafted. I don't know where, but he's gonna get himself drafted. That is an insane story. So I think overall, Jesse Minter, a few years ago, Harbaugh, we all remember Don Brown. And we loved him, the energy, and, Don Brown, all that kind of stuff. But Harbaugh made the decision. He was like, hey, we've got to run an NFL-style defense. We're hiring Mike McDonald, who is now probably one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. And then after he left for the NFL, got Jesse Minter, who's also an NFL guy. And they run an NFL defense, and you could see it gave Penix problems because he was like off all night. So to answer your question, I kind of had the same feeling in the second half. I didn't really ever feel nervous. It was just kind of like almost waiting for that 180-yard bomb to like give Washington hope.
Yeah, before you break a sweat.
Yeah, I was probably more with your dad there, Jared. I was a little bit nervous, especially starting off the second half. When they got the interception, I definitely felt better. And then when they had the holding penalty, calling back that big long pass,
right,
I started settling in at that point. They took care of business. Speaking of that defense, man, incredible, just incredible. And you talk about how they run the pro style. It's exactly, they're rotating big men in there, left and right. It's awesome.
Yeah,
there's no weak link. Will Johnson, he's probably gonna be a top 5 pick after next year when he goes to the draft. Again, my favorite compliment of that guy. He goes the whole game. He had the one interception. Other than that, you never hear his name. He's just out there. Whoever he's guarding, they're not throwing to. Yep. Sanders still had a big pick to seal it. Those 2 D linemen, man, Graham and Kenneth Grant. Grant had maybe the sweetest bull rush I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
I mean,
he just knocked over 71.
Those linemen, I felt bad for them, and they're a good offensive line. It's like we did that to Alabama's offensive line. We did that to everybody, and you just felt bad for him. Like I saw number 73. I'm blanking on his name. He was having a rough day with false starts and just getting kind of mauled by McGregor and a few different plays. And I saw he didn't give a sack all year. And he still didn't give up a sack against Michigan. That's the crazy thing. They only gave up one sack. Is that right? Yeah. But it felt like Penix was under duress all game, and they were rushing 4. It's like what we would love to see from the Lions on Sunday. You got home with 4. We won't see that probably, but they got home with 4, and then they just were able to drop everybody else into coverage. It was a masterclass. I thank God John Harbaugh decided to, which he's like the coolest Harbaugh. I don't know what it is about him. Somehow he's awesome. I love John Harbaugh, maybe even more than Jim. Him passing over Minter and McDonald to us, when we were in dire straits, when Harbaugh was on whatever it was, like a $1 million a year contract, a joke contract. And it's funny how it seemed like that was all we needed to get us over the hump. It's like we were banging our head against the wall with Don Brown and these like engage 8 blitzes. He called himself Dr. Blitz. And we finally get in Minter, and it's like the whole college football landscape's opened up. It's like, wow, this is the best defense I've ever seen. The best part, Matt, you talk about feeling relieved. You know what's kind of sad? I'm just going to say it because it's a genuine reaction. My first thought, and as I'm scrolling through Twitter, seeing all the naysayers, mostly Michigan State fans, this win will be vacated. Congrats to all the CMU, Grand Valley, Saginaw Valley alums today. Like you guys did great. Like this is a win that makes it so none of those state jabs can hurt you anymore. It's like the ultimate trump card. We were waiting for it. We thought we were going to get it with Beeline in those basketball two runs they had. We thought we were going to get a title then that could always trump Michigan State and all the naysayers, Ohio State, everything. They did it. In the college football playoff realm, not we were splitting titles, they won the national title. Yep. And now all the naysayers who claim it was cheating or whatever, they just have to eat it, man. And it feels great.
Yeah, and it's even if, you talk about Reggie Bush's Heisman got taken away, but everyone knows he won the Heisman. If you talk to anyone who talks about the Heisman Trophy, he won that, even if he doesn't physically have the trophy. I honestly don't think much more is going to come of all this stuff. I feel like if it was going to, it would have already. It may still, we don't know what they're going to look into this offseason, but I highly doubt if anything does, it's going to go as far as vacating this season or anything. Maybe another suspension for Harbaugh, maybe like a loss of scholarships for Michigan if it goes that far. I'd be really surprised if it went as far as taking this national championship away, partly because Harbaugh served the suspension in season. So you could almost say like he did do his time. He served the 3-game suspension and the team kept winning. Right. The team beat Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, dominated Iowa in the Big Ten championship, dominated Alabama, Washington. And so, no, I don't think we know how it goes, though. Opposing fan bases, they're always going to be salty about this.
Well, what was sweet is that, like, you think about, like, my whole life, at the lunch tables, man, there's nothing. I wish I could hit a time machine and transport me back to those high school lunch tables, man, and just give me, like, the floor for 30 minutes to rip all those guys that I had to hear from. We, like, bested them at every step. They talk about that stupid Rose Bowl win, which was basically meaningless, versus Stanford, whenever that was, 2013-14. I remember going to my buddy's like frat house, and on the wall they have that like 4th and inches stop for Stanford. Right. If we went to the Rose Bowl, we beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl. That's like a bigger Rose Bowl win. Went to the national championship, won the national championship. We had this all-star defense, 10 times better than no-fly zone defense. Like every step of the way, I loved it, man. It's like I felt like a kid watching that game.
Isn't this funny, Ted, to hear Jared's perspective on this? Because he grew up in the Michigan State era where Michigan State was dominating Michigan. Because everything you're describing, I was the other way. Because I grew up, like through the 90s, through early 2000s when Michigan was dominating. So I was wearing my Michigan stuff proud to the lunch table. But I understand you probably, you were not during the Rich Rod and Brady Hoke years. So I get that. But like I said, the opposing fan bases are always going to hate. Yeah, that's just how it is. I mean, you hear me hate on Izzo, even though Izzo's one of the best coaches ever. You know what I mean? Like it's just always going to happen. But
do you guys think there is an asterisk on this? What do you like?
No way.
And because part of it too is, and I really don't think it's because we're fans. I think we would be honest if we thought they were legitimately cheating and it was some big old thing Harbaugh knew, all that kind of, we'd be the first ones to say, you this isn't a good look. Harbaugh's got to go, whatever. If it went that far, but multiple people have even come out and said like whatever the Stallions dude was doing wasn't giving them that big of a competitive advantage. Since he's been gone, they've continued to roll. If anything, they've gotten better since all this stuff happened. All these guys came back to win this thing. Harbaugh did his time, the assistants. I mean, everything about it is just like the whole scandal, the people that still try to bring it up. It's almost like, I don't know. They're just being salty about it is how I see it. Again, I understand it as an opposing fan. You're going to be salty, but no way.
Believe me, I've been there a lot. Like, it's funny seeing all the Twitter arguments. Like, I remember those days, man. Trouble with the snap. The Devin Gardner game where we had like minus 50 yards. Like I remember battling those wars. You never win them. Man, I lost my train of thought. I'm just so happy.
While you regain that, I was going to ask Ted. We brought up the 97 and, just the whole generations and we're talking about this team or whatever. Where would you you didn't have time to prepare for this. Maybe you've thought about it. Would you put this team up there as prisoner of the moment? I'm sure the best Michigan team ever.
Oh, you have
better than the 97 team. Maybe some of those in the 80s.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, this team has impressed me from the get-go, especially starting with that Penn State game and just watching that run all the way to win the Natty. I mean, yeah, they've had some great teams in their history, but I don't think it's just a prisoner of the moment thing. I think this team was legit in every aspect, starting with probably the greatest coach of all time at Michigan, Jim Harbaugh. 3 straight national championships, or 3 straight playoff performances, a natty, and everything else that's gone along with it. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do. His mission was to turn this program around, make them an elite, top of the line college program, and he's done it.
Yep. It's hard not. It's funny. The text thread I always mention on this podcast with my buddies from back home, that question came up. Is Jim Harbaugh the best coach in Michigan history? Obviously, the only one that'd be second would be Bo Schembechler. You know, Lloyd Carr is there, but it's hard not to say it's Jim Harbaugh with how he's turned this around. 3 straight Big Ten titles.
Yeah, how could you not?
Overcoming Ohio State when Ohio State was peak Ohio State. And then now obviously winning the national championship. It's hard not to say he's the best Michigan coach ever, which honestly, I tweeted it out. Again, maybe we talk about emotional tweets or text, you know, in the moment. You can make an argument if he does end up leaving for the NFL, you know, maybe we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but you can make an argument, build him a statue for what he did as a player and then coming back to Michigan and rebuilding the program and winning a national championship. You can make an argument. He hasn't been there as long as Bo Schembechler was, but you can make an argument, build him a statue, name the practice field after him, the Jim Harbaugh practice field, you know, something like that, because hopefully he doesn't leave. If he does, I'd be fine with it. Again, we'll probably talk about that a little more in a minute, but he's put this program in a place that if he does go, whoever takes over is just keep the train rolling. Just keep the train rolling. You know what I mean? So no, I would put it up there because I saw some of the stats. They're one of 4 teams ever to go undefeated, and they never allowed more than 25 points in a game. Wow. Remember, Penn State's offense was scoring a ton of points, and they shut them down. Ohio State obviously is Ohio State. I know McCord isn't CJ Stroud, but it's still Ohio State. Shut them down. Alabama was scoring a ton of points. Shut them down. Michael Penix was a Heisman Trophy candidate. Probably you said, Ted, probably should have won the Heisman.
I thought so, yeah.
NFL receivers all over the place. Joe Moore Award, offensive line. And they shut them down last night in the national title game. I mean, you remember the 97 defense with Charles Woodson and all those guys. That was a lights out defense. But, man, this defense, and I'm a J.J. McCarthy fan. He's going to catch hate because he doesn't put up Michael Penix type numbers. He's 27-1 as a starter. 2 straight Big Ten championships because he wasn't the starter, obviously, for the first one. And a national championship. I don't know how you can hate on this guy. He does everything he's asked to do. It's frustrating at times because I wish they asked him to do more. Exactly. But he does what the coaching staff asks him to do. When he's asked to run, he does, and he picks up first downs. When he needs to make big throws, like he did on that drive in the fourth quarter, zipped one to Colston Loveland, threw a nice little pass to Roman Wilson. Sealed the game, basically. Did the same thing against Alabama last week in the Rose Bowl. And we've seen when he does need to like air it out against Ohio State last year and a couple other games, he can. I honestly think it's just the coaching staff doesn't ask him to do much. I think they know. Lean on our defense. We've said this in previous podcasts. The term game manager gets thrown around. I don't understand why that's like a bad thing. They probably don't lose the game. JJ, don't lose the game. Like against TCU last year, we don't need to bring that up, but those pick sixes maybe lost them that game. Don't lose the game. Make the throws when we ask you to, run when we ask you to, and hand the ball to these running backs. That's not a bad thing. He's 27-1 as a starter. I don't know how you hate on the kid.
Yeah, you can't he won a national title. It's like he's I can't say another bad word really about him. He's definitely I don't know. Yeah, like you said, and I'm sure, I think he's coming back next year. We'll do the same thing next year. Man. Where there'll be games like in that third quarter, man, I don't even know if he attempted a pass like more than 5 yards. It feels like sometimes, whether it's by design or just inadvertently, like they treat him like he's like me out there throwing the ball. Like it's JJ McCarthy, man. Like you're comping him to Andrew Luck. He's getting first round grades in the NFL draft. Like let him sling it. But I think it is what you can't argue with the final result when they won. that was what was weird about this year. It's like every game was like kind of an ugly win, but they kept winning. It's like, I'll take that every day of the week. People are bitching about how it's a boring game last night. I loved every second of it, man.
Yeah.
It
wasn't boring to me.
Right.
And JJ, I mean, people are like, it's so kind of lame, but cliche to say, he's a winner. But there is something to be said about that. Other than one game his entire career, he's made enough plays to win. That's impressive as a quarterback. We talk about it all the time. There's so many different ways you can lose the game. He didn't do that. He won a back-breaking pick in that third quarter. Michigan could have lost that game easily. Yep. And he never made that mistake. So, and he made a couple big plays that won him the game. Him using his legs on that third down, backed up in their own end zone, basically. And then that throw to Loveland, like you said. He did just enough, man. And I mean, if he's back next year, I'm almost positive he's got the chance to put together one of the greatest like college careers I've ever seen. Like you beat Ohio State 3 times. He's going for the 4-peat, 3 Big Ten titles, 3. He's been to the college football playoff every single year, going for probably 4 next year. I mean, if he's back, if Harbaugh's back, they're the favorites to win the national title, right? I would think so.
I don't know how you argue against that. I mean, obviously like Georgia, but I mean, with the 12 going to the 12-team playoff, Michigan has an insane schedule next year. But going to the 12-team playoff, you think at minimum they'd be back in the playoff, and then don't know what happens. But is it time to get into that? Are we done talking about the game specifically, or you guys? Do we think? I don't know. How late did you guys stay up? Did you watch all the post game stuff? The Scott Van Pelt
I watched most of it. I recorded the rest of it, but I watched most of it.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw like. They Sports Center went to the press conference with Harbaugh, and he joined Scott Van Pelt on Sports Center, which is Scott Van Pelt. I mean, this isn't company man speak. He's the best in the business. The SVP is so good at hosting Sports Center or whatever show he has to host, but the interviews that he does are just so good. It's just natural. It's like just 2 guys talking shop. And when I saw that Harbaugh was joining SVP, I was like, man, I don't know how this is going to go. Harbaugh's such a...
Well, I was like, they were teasing it, and I'm like, I'm not sure he's actually going to go on. Like, until he's actually on, I'm like, I don't believe he's actually going to go on the show. But he did.
No, I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was like, is this confirmed? Do they know he's going to come out there and put that headset on? But it was a pretty good interview. I mean, it was a Harbaugh interview, but they, at the press conference and with SVP, they asked about the future, and obviously he just gave the, I want to just enjoy this or whatever. But
exactly.
Again, texting with my buddies, we all kind of came to a consensus or said the same thing. Previous years, I would have been pretty upset if he left, not like mad at him, not something like that, but pretty like, damn, we had Harbaugh and could never like get it done. Honestly, if he decided to go to the Raiders, go to the Chargers this year, it would be a thank you, coach. You rebuilt the program. You won a national title. Go after a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? It would be one of those things like, man, I think you said it. One of you guys said it. He did what he came here to do.
Right.
He came to Michigan when they were in the dumps, rebuilt the program. He's put himself above. Michigan's above Ohio State right now. Won a national title. I mean, it would be the time for him to step away if he's going to. My gut, I don't know what you guys think. My gut is that he's still going to come back. Again, in that SVP interview, I don't know if you guys I don't know if it was a slip or if he just kind of said, I don't know if you've seen this, Ted, but
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So if you recorded it, go back and watch it. This isn't like spoiler alert, but
no, fine.
Yeah, the SVP asked him about like, what are you doing? Like what's your next few days? Basically trying to ask him about the NFL, but didn't come out and ask him about the NFL. And Harbaugh basically said, like, usually we go, of course, Harbaugh said something goofy, said we go into spring ball. Usually we start spring ball on Valentine's Day because we love football. But he said this year we're going to push spring ball back to March and give guys a couple more weeks off. So it's kind of like, so wait, you're already planning your spring ball practice? Like, wow, yeah. And SVP even said that he said something like, oh, so you're thinking about spring in Ann Arbor? And I think everyone was like, whoa, wait, what did you just say? So yeah, I don't know. It might mean nothing, but
until I saw that, I was 100% he's gone, and for sure Minter's gone with him. And I mean, I think the rumor everybody's been saying is Sharon Moore probably is the heir apparent to take over, which I think we're all in favor of. I mean, he proved himself this year. And I mean, we can talk all day about his offensive coordinating. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn hard to call perfect, offensive game plan.
Right.
But I think I hate to say it, I'm all the way back in. I think he's coming back. Something about that. Something about the more and more I think about it, like, why would you leave? I feel like we're on like the precipice of like being a Bama. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Especially if we would have stayed in the college football playoff format and no conference realignment, where it was just us heading to Ohio State every year. If we beat them, we're basically in the playoff. Like I feel like we could do this for the next 3 years.
Right.
And so it's like, I know the Charger job is enticing, with Justin Herbert and all that, but I mean, he's got this thing humming. Just keep filling it with gas. Whereas if you go to the NFL, you got to rebuild the whole car from scratch. He might, and especially if the sanctions, maybe there's more coming from the NCAA. Right. I think if there was nothing coming from the NCAA, he could just pick it up and start coaching right where he left off. I think he's back. I don't know. Yeah. I'm getting my hopes up. Maybe I'm an idiot because this whole season, I thought he's been gone. But something about that comment and the way he was acting after the game last night, it's like, I think he's back. I think he's just a weirdo who doesn't want to give, I saw Andy Staples basically asked him the question. And Jim was like, can I just freaking enjoy this for one night without you guys do this? And Andy Staples is going back and forth with people. Like, people are basically saying, like, that's not your job to ask him that. In that situation, he's like, well, maybe it is my job. I think he's back. I think he is. I really do.
Well, I hope you guys are right, but I'm leaning the other way. I really am. I mean, if you're ever going to leave for the NFL at his age, what is he, 60? He could get another 10-year contract with the big bucks. Just look at football. The thing in the way the college landscape has changed now, with all you have to be on top of the nil money and everything else that's going with college football, especially with the Big Ten realignment. I hope you're right. I want him to be a lifer at Michigan. I've said it before, but I just think this is the year that he's going to get multiple opportunities and he's going to pick the one that he wants. And I think I agree with you, Matt. How can you hold it against the guy? What he did, what he needed to do, got the national championship. As much as we want to see him in Ann Arbor, I just think this is the time,
Yeah. Yeah. And Booger McFarland this morning, I was watching Get Up. He made a good point, and I guess maybe to support Jared and I's prediction or hope, I guess, of Harbaugh coming back, you have to wonder, because I feel like when it was either with the Broncos or the Vikings, one of the jobs that he interviewed for, it came out that one of the things that made him either not get the offer or accept the offer was, Harbaugh has a very big ego. Everyone knows that. And he wanted to go somewhere where he had full control. Basically what Bill Belichick has with the Patriots, where he's the GM and the coach. Apparently that's kind of what Harbaugh has been looking for. He wants to go somewhere where he can build he wants to draft who he wants to draft. He wants to sign who he wants to sign, hire the coaches that he wants. And one of the places, the Vikings or the Broncos, weren't going to give him that. So that's what Booger said this morning. Why, if another NFL team isn't going to give him that full control, why would Harbaugh at this point in his career, like you said, Ted, 60, I mean, he's at the top of the profession. Why would he want to go to the NFL and be told what to do?
Yeah.
Whereas at Michigan, to an extent, he could basically do what he wants. You know what I mean? He puts full trust in his assistant coaches and everything, of course, but that would maybe be one thing. It does genuinely. I mean, I think he just loves football in general. He's a football guy, but it seems like he genuinely enjoys the kids, being around 18, 20-year-old kids, recruiting. And he's a football guy. He's been in the NFL, everything, but I got to think it's like not as fun in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's the NFL. NFL's king. We all know that, but it just seems like it wouldn't be as fun. Unless you're winning. If you're John Harbaugh and the Ravens right now, it's probably a blast. Right. But if you go through a 2-3 year run where you miss the playoffs or something, I mean, that does not sound fun. Whereas now you get fired.
Right.
But what he's done at Michigan now, he's set. Even if they did slip, say JJ leaves and, they kind of have a 2-year run where they go 9-3, something like that, 8-4, he's fine. Just beat Michigan State, win a couple big games. And you know what I mean? Like he has no like threat of getting fired at this point.
Right.
Unless like just something absolutely crazy happens. But the NFL, like you guys just said, in the NFL, that could happen. And then that could be a stain on his, resume, kind of in a similar way, like a Jim Harbaugh or John Beeline leaving to go to the NBA. And that did not work out at all. But
you're selling me. I like.
Well, it's just like, what's the what is he searching for?
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I guess that it's probably right because he lost that to his brother. He was so close. I mean, he made that NFC Championship 3 times on top of that too. Dude, you got this thing rolling. Like, yes. I get recruiting sucks, and this new world, NIL, transfer portal. I don't know. They seem to have figured it out, especially the portal. It's like, this identity where we're just going to have 2 stud tight ends. We're going to have a stud offensive line. We're going to develop our quarterbacks. Just keep it rolling. The defense, whoever plug and play with Minter, they're going to be damn good. It's like, why do you want to go to the NFL and basically you have to win now, especially with the Chargers job? It's like, what? Playoffs are less next year? And then, all of a sudden, if you don't make the playoffs, now you're on the hot seat? Why? Just keep it rolling, man. I get recruiting sucks, but God, it feels good when you're out here bludgeoning Michigan State, James Franklin, Ryan Day. That probably doesn't get old. I wouldn't think.
Right. I will say you guys are bringing up good points that I'm sure he has to think about that stuff for sure. And I've said it before, and I think we all agree. He's a damn good coach. He could coach in the NFL. He's proven that. But really, when you look at Jim Harbaugh to his core, he's a college football coach.
I think so.
Well, like you said, the players love him. In that Scott Van Pelt interview, you got stopped by 2 different players. I think Samaj Morgan was one of them. They're like, I love you, coach. Like they love him. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Everything he told them, we're going to be national champions, buy in. Donovan Edwards, we didn't even talk about him.
Right.
He's going to be fun to watch next year. I don't know if they might still maybe try to get another running back in there in that room with him and Mullins. Or is Mullins graduated?
Mullins? No, he's only a sophomore.
So he'll be back. They're going to be great in the backfield again next year. Edwards, he's just buying time all year. We've been talking about how great he's been kind of just accepting his role, letting Corum kind of be the main guy. And wow, when he breaks through that first level, it's like he's gone every time. It's like both times on both those runs, like as soon as he broke through the defensive line, you're like, oh, he's gone. They're not catching him. It was awesome to see that. So it's like they got a really good culture rolling. Like it's like a battleship. You can slowly turn it, man. I don't see a world where they're going to really drop off. I think it's 10 wins and better. Right. Unless this new schedule really is that tough. I think it's 10 wins or better for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Should be. It like you said, as long as they keep things rolling, and he's building it to a point like where Saban had Alabama, where Urban Meyer had Ohio State. You still have to recruit for sure, especially with all that stuff that you guys have both mentioned, NIL, transfer portal. But he almost has it to a point where if he calls and says you want to come to Michigan, guys will come. Like to an extent. You still have to recruit and everything, and NIL is a big thing. But, guys are seeing this. You got the jump man on your hat right there, Jared. People, these kids love that stuff. First jump man school to win a national championship, by the way. I did see that Desmond Howard mentioned that. I did see that. So all this stuff is a big deal.
Speaking of jump man, did you see that press box area where they were partying?
Man.
Who
was up there? It was like Derek Jeter, Michael Jordan, Stephen A. Smith. I saw was up there. Travis Scott. I don't know. Ted, you might not know who Travis Scott is.
I know who he is. I know who he is.
I barely know who he is. I know Jared probably does.
He knows him from the McDonald's, the Cactus Jack McDonald's meal, probably.
Right.
Doesn't he have a famous girlfriend?
One of the Jenners, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's how I know him.
Yeah.
It's like,
so I'm just, it's all back to, I'm with you, Jared. Why would he leave?
Yeah,
but that Super Bowl might be enough to say, I got to go after a Super Bowl. But
I just think the NFL is always going to be there. I get this, I don't know. I guess the Chargers job is enticing. Having zero fan base doesn't sound that fun to me. But,
no.
Right.
It's like, what are you waiting for, man? Your NFL shelf life as a head coach, we saw he was a damn good coach of the 49ers. They still fired him after 4 or 5 years.
What's the money? Is there a money difference? Is there a money difference? Money?
Doesn't.
We'll see what this new contract is going to. I think you make more as college coaches make more.
Really?
Right?
And what was that reported? The offer on the table was like $150 million from Michigan.
Wow.
So, but with the clause of you're not going to flirt with the NFL anymore. So
right.
It is why I don't get why he keeps doing. If he doesn't leave this cycle, if we do this again next year, I might be out on Jim Harbaugh. I don't care how many. Why do we keep If he does resign and it is that way, why does he keep doing that? it would be, this whole thing would be annoying if he just ends up re-signing. It's like, why do we do this?
I feel like this would be the time for him to sign a 10-year deal.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of the time in his tenure, he couldn't beat Ohio State. So it was hard to justify that 10-year huge deal. Even after 2020, when they went 2-4, it was like, geez, we're about to fire this guy. Now, if he's going to stay, it would make sense. Give him the 10-year, $150 million. You're the Tom Izzo of Michigan football. You're stay here forever. We're going to name a building after you. We're going to name a field that, you know what I mean? Before, it was kind of hard to justify that, even though we knew he was a good coach. But it was like, man, you can't beat Ohio State. Man, you haven't even won a Big Ten. And, you know, of course, you hadn't won a national championship. Now he's done all that. Give him whatever he wants. But he might want to get back to the NFL because he's seeing his brother, number 1 seed in the AFC, potentially winning another Super Bowl. And that might, you know, brother rivalry, that might be enough to be like, he did make a funny comment in the presser. I don't know if you saw this, Ted. I'm sure you did, Jared. He said something like, finally, I can sit at the big kids table at the family dinner.
He said like the same joke like 3 or 4 different times, like in different interviews, like same wording, everything. Like he's an odd guy. I love him. He knows how to freaking coach a football team. But in those post game, man, every question, like, I mean, the very first thing that I think it was Holly Rowe asked him is like, you know, how does it feel? He says something along the lines of, you know, there's thousands of confetti falling. There's a million stories and all this confetti. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm loving it, but I don't know what you're talking about.
But then it's kind of like you see when they talk to his mom and dad, you kind of see why, because they're characters too. So it's kind of like, oh, what's it? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
And that's why I like John Harbaugh. And what an awesome moment it was mid game. He just walks right up and hugs Jim. Wasn't that just a sweet little visual? It's like, wow, that's awesome. Is John
which is kind of wild. Like, sorry, Jared, to cut you off, because I wanted to ask that. Like, they're obviously super close. There was that feature that Marty Smith did during College Game Day about their, you know, bond. Super, super, super close. He really walked up to him in the middle of the national championship and was just like, hey, what's up, brother? How's it going?
Hey, I made
it. Right. Yeah. But then, you know, you didn't see Jim. He wasn't annoyed. He gave him a hug and they talked for a minute. It's just kind of like, I'd almost be, what if Jim walked up to you in the middle of the Super Bowl? Would you be like, hey, man, get the hell out of here. I'm coaching a game. It's just, I thought that was funny.
Who is
also really cool too?
Is it
John is?
He's older
by a year.
Dude, he looks like he's like 40 years old. Like he looks great, and that's what I was like joking about.
Because he didn't play in the NFL for 15 years.
Yeah, that's true. Jim is like literally his dad, just younger, and then John seems like this cool, like hip, like guy. It's just funny seeing the two guys like interact. A couple things I want to throw out, just like great moments that we might be glossed over. We're talking about Harbaugh's parents. His dad, who's got it better than us, the chant where he was literally screaming so loud, like the mic like cut out. Like what a great moment that was. I mean, we got to give Corum his credit. I mean, that picture of him. I mean, this is more so just his career as a whole. That picture of him against Penn State, you know, stalwart with the blood all over his nose. I mean, how do you not love Corum, man? We've loved that kid. We remember when he first burst onto the scene with Hassan Haskins, and he was kind of in the Donovan Edwards role. It's like this guy's a stud, man. When he gets the keys, it's going to be on, and it was. I mean, just love how he runs. It's going to be sad seeing Donovan Edwards take over the leash next year. It's going to be awesome because he's going to have a lot of big runs. But I love that punishing style and how Blake Corum was just like what I like to call a muscle hamster. Like I loved watching him run. He was awesome.
Yeah, like you said, mission accomplished too. That was pretty cool at the post game. Definitely, I think the best running back in Michigan history, arguably, right?
Hard to argue. I mean, has the touchdowns record. I mean, he carried the load for basically 3 years.
Right.
Came back. He could have went to the NFL last year. He came back to do this. Has beaten, you know, all the check marks. Beat Ohio State. Beat Michigan State. Won Big Ten. Won a Natty. Not much else he can do. He was a Heisman candidate last year until he got hurt. I mean,
and was the exclamation point in the two biggest wins in Michigan history, really, Bama and then Washington. They had the two touchdowns that iced it. This is off the wall, but if we're kind of moving on, this is something that pissed me off all night. The NCAA football game won.
Oh yeah, did they ever announce that?
What?
Did they ever announce that they were supposed to?
It's not coming. It's never coming. these
Oh,
MFers, man. I could go to, I think their headquarters are in Turbin, EA Sports. Dude, I could burn that place down. We have been 10 years without an NCAA football game. That's crazy. 10 years without an
wow.
NCAA football game. My favorite game of all time. Everybody's favorite game of all time. The best football game. And they've been teasing this damn game. Like, I have a Facebook memory from like 2017 where they teased like that the game was coming back. That was 6 years ago. They have not done anything. The only thing I've heard is this stupid plan where they're going to pay players $500, just like flat rate. You're getting $500 to do the game. That's not going to work. The guys like Caleb Williams, they're probably not going to agree to that shit. So the game's going to be, even if it does somehow come out, the game's going to suck. I'm just so sick of everybody hyping it up. I knew this trailer was never going to drop. You never heard anything from EA, just like the rumor mill on Twitter saying that there's going to be this commercial. I'm just sick of that game. I'm done talking about it until there's literally a physical copy in my hands. It's never coming.
That's what I've said over and over. Until I see it on the shelves, or like you said, in my hand, and I'm playing, I'm not going to believe it's coming back. You asked Ted, what are they waiting for? The big hang up why it went away first was it was before NIL. You know, guys were saying, hey, EA's making all this money. You know, like Denard Robinson was on the cover, and he probably didn't get a dime from that. He might have got a little bit.
I think he did because they would do seniors who graduated.
Right. He was in the NFL, so he could make a little money. But all the other players in the game weren't at that time able to make money off of it, which is kind of BS. That's why their names weren't in it. It was like QB number 16. Wide receiver number 1. But, you know, everyone knew that was Blake Corum. Everyone knew that, you know, whoever it was. Now that's what they're trying to figure out. Like Jared said, they're trying to figure out how much to pay these guys. Are we just going to give everyone a flat $500? Well, no, that doesn't make sense. For JJ McCarthy should make more than the quarterback for Missouri
that can throw a pass.
Right.
Yeah, they should get their fair share for sure. Let's figure it out somehow.
Yeah. So that they're trying to figure out, like, do we go off of sales? You know, like, is there a percentage? Like, certain guys will get a certain percent, you know,
how many times you play the guy or whatever.
Right. And someone was trying to figure out some like algorithm. How many times does a guy play with Michigan and play with JJ McCarthy, and then that decides how much money he gets, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that honestly, that's the big hang up is how much are we going to pay these guys? So it does suck though, because I've said, I have a PS4. PS5 is, you know, because I don't really play games that much anymore. But when this game comes out, if it'll be PS5, this is what'll make me buy a PS5. I've told my wife already, if this game drops, I will go buy a PS5 because it is one of the coolest games. I don't believe it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA 14, the last one that came out, it's like, dude, that game, people were still playing it on the PS3, Xbox 360, you know, for like 3 or 4 years after that, until finally the new, you know, PS4 came around. Then you couldn't do it anymore. It's like that game had such a long shelf life because it's such a great game. Like, what are we doing? Figure this stuff out with NIL. It's like, dude, if you got to have a few guys sit out because they're not willing to play, so what? It is what it is. We just give us a game, or just shut up about it.
Yeah, right.
Well, do we want anything else we need to wrap on the national championship, fellas?
So I wonder when it's going to truly hit home. I mean, it has, but you know, it's just what a season, man. What a season.
Incredible. Well, we got another team we're following, the Detroit Lions, and their year's still going. We'll talk about that right after this.